Throughout history, society has been fascinated by the stories of criminals who break the law and commit heinous acts. While male criminals often dominate headlines, female criminals have also made their mark in the world of crime. From notorious serial killers to cunning con artists, these 10 female criminals have shocked the world with their crimes. Their stories are both intriguing and horrifying, providing insight into the dark side of human nature. Hello everyone, this is the Top U channel. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the lives and crimes of these 10 infamous female criminals and the impact they had on society. Although their actions were reprehensible, their stories are undeniably captivating. So buckle up and prepare to be shocked and amazed as we delve into the world of female criminals. Number 10, Sandra Avila Beltran, the Queen of the Pacific. Sandra Avila Beltran, also known as the Queen of the Pacific, is one of the most notorious female criminals in the world. She was born on October 11, 1960, in Baja California, Mexico. Sandra's father was a well-known drug lord who was involved in the trafficking of drugs between Mexico and the United States. Sandra followed in her father's footsteps and quickly became involved in the drug trade. She was known for her intelligence and her ability to work her way up the ranks of the drug cartels. Sandra was eventually arrested in 2007 and charged with conspiracy to traffic drugs. She was extradited to the United States in 2012, where she was sentenced to 70 months in prison. During her trial, it was revealed that Sandra had been involved in the trafficking of more than 100 tons of cocaine. Despite her criminal history, Sandra's story is a fascinating one. She is a woman who rose to the top of a male-dominated industry and became one of the most powerful drug lords in the world. Her story is a reminder that even the most unlikely of people can become involved in crime and that the consequences can be severe. Number 9, Aileen Wernos, the Monster of Florida. Aileen Wernos is one of the most notorious female criminals in history. She was a serial killer who murdered 7 men in Florida between 1989 and 1990. Wernos was a prostitute who had a troubled childhood, and her adult life was marked by poverty, homelessness, and run-ins with the law. She claimed that her victims had all raped or attempted to rape her, and that she had killed them in self-defense. However, her claims were not taken seriously by the court, and she was found guilty of her crimes. Wernos was sentenced to death and was executed by lethal injection in 2002. Her story has been the subject of many books, movies, and documentaries, and she is often remembered as a tragic figure whose life was marked by violence, abuse, and mental illness. Number 8, Griselda Blanco, the godmother of cocaine. Griselda Blanco was a notorious female criminal who shocked the world with her ruthless behavior and involvement in the cocaine trade. Known as the godmother of cocaine, Blanco was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people during her reign as a drug lord in the 1970s and 1980s. She was born in Colombia in 1943 and moved to the United States in the early 1970s to oversee her drug trafficking operations. Blanco was known for her brutal tactics, which included ordering hits on those who crossed her or failed to follow her orders. She was also known for inventing the concept of the motorcycle assassin, in which hitmen would ride up to their targets on motorcycles, shoot them, and then speed away. Blanco was eventually arrested in 1985 and spent nearly 2 decades in prison. She was deported to Colombia in 2004. Where she was assassinated in 2012 by a rival drug lord. Number 7, Belle Gunness, the Lady Bluebeard. Belle Gunness, also known as the Lady Bluebeard, was a notorious female criminal who achieved infamy in the early 1900s. She was born in Norway, but she moved to the United States where she married and had several children. Over the years, Belle's reputation as a ruthless murderer grew, and it is estimated that she may have killed as many as 40 people, including her own children. Her preferred method of murder was to poison her victims with strychnine, which she would administer in food or drink. Belle's victims were typically men who had responded to her personal ads in newspapers seeking a romantic partner. Once they arrived at her farm, she would murder them and dispose of their bodies in various ways. She often dismembered her victims and fed their remains to her pigs. In 1908, Bell's farm was destroyed by a fire, and the remains of several bodies were discovered in the rubble. However, Bell's own body was never found, leading to speculation that she may have faked her own death and escaped justice. To this day, the true extent of Bell's crimes remains a mystery, and her story continues to fascinate and horrify people around the world. Number 6. Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess. Known as the Blood Countess, Elizabeth Bathory was a Hungarian noblewoman and one of the most notorious female criminals in history. She is believed to have been responsible for the torture and murder of over 600 young women in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. Bathory's crimes were discovered in 1610 when she was arrested and put on trial. According to witnesses, Bathory would torture and murder young women, often bathing in their blood in a belief that it would keep her youthful and beautiful. She was eventually found guilty of torturing and killing over 80 young women and was sentenced to life imprisonment. Bathory's story has gone on to inspire many books, films, and legends, making her one of the most infamous female criminals in history. To this day, the exact number of her victims is unknown, but Bathory's legacy as the Blood Countess lives on, a symbol of the darkest depths of human depravity. Number 5. Mary Ann Cotton, the Black Widow. Mary Ann Cotton, also known as the Black Widow, is one of the most notorious female criminals in history. Born in England in 1832, Cotton was known for her ability to charm and manipulate men. However, her real talent was her skill in poisoning her husbands, lovers, and children. Cotton is believed to have killed at least 21 people, including 3 of her own children, and a number of her lovers and husbands. Cotton's murderous spree began when she was just a teenager. She poisoned her first husband, William Mowbray, with arsenic in 1852. She then went on to marry and poison several other men over the following years. Her motive was simple: she wanted to collect their life insurance policies. She was sentenced to death and hanged on March 24, 1873, in Durham, England. Mary Ann Cotton's case remains one of the most shocking and notorious cases in the history of female criminals. Her ability to charm and manipulate people, combined with her deadly ambition, made her one of the most dangerous women of her time. Number 4. Rosemary West, the House of Horrors. One of the most notorious female criminals in history is Rosemary West, also known as the House of Horrors killer. Together with her husband, Fred West, they committed a series of heinous crimes in their home in Gloucester, England, during the 1970s. The Wests were responsible for the torture, rape, and murder of at least 12 young women and girls, including their own daughter. The victims were buried in the basement and garden of their house, which became known as the House of Horrors. Rosemary was a willing accomplice to her husband's crimes and was actively involved in the torture and murder of their victims. She was also known to have participated in sexual acts with some of the victims before or after they were killed. The couple was eventually caught in 1994 when police searched their home and uncovered the horrific crimes that had taken place there. Rosemary was convicted of 10 counts of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. She is still in prison to this day, and her crimes continue to shock and horrify people around the world. Number 3. Bonnie Parker, the infamous bank robber. Bonnie Parker is an infamous name in the world of crime. She was part of a notorious duo with Clyde Barrow, and they are widely known as Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie Parker is best known for her role in a series of bank robberies and murders that took place in the early 1930s. She was born in 1910 in Texas, and she met Clyde Barrow when she was just 19 years old. Together, they embarked on a life of crime, robbing banks and killing anyone who got in their way. Bonnie became a household name when her picture was discovered in their hideout after a shootout with police. The picture showed her holding a gun and smoking a cigar, which became an iconic image of the duo. Bonnie Parker was known for her beauty and charm, which made her a successful criminal. She was often seen as the mastermind behind their robberies, and she was known to be a crack shot with a gun. Bonnie and Clyde became national news, and they were hunted by the law for years. The duo was eventually caught and killed in a shootout with police in 1934. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow became legendary figures in American folklore, and their story has been immortalized in books, movies, and songs. Number 2. Myra Hindley, the Moors murderer. Myra Hindley is infamous for being a key player in the Moors murderer case, one of the most notorious criminal cases in British history. Alongside her partner, Ian Brady, Hindley was responsible for the murders of 5 children and young adults between 1963 and 1965. The couple's method of operation was particularly gruesome, as they would entice their victims into their car before taking them to a nearby moorland to sexually assault and murder them. Hindley's role in the case was particularly shocking, as she was seen to be instrumental in luring the victims and actively participating in the killings. After the pair were caught, Hindley was sentenced to life imprisonment, where she remained until her death in 2002. Despite numerous appeals to have her released, she remained a controversial figure, with many finding it difficult to forgive her for her role in such a heinous crime. The Moors murders case remains one of the most shocking examples of serial killing in history, and Myra Hindley's name will always be synonymous with this infamous case. Number 1. Judy Benoano, the Black Widow of Death Row. Judy Benoano, also known as the Black Widow of Death Row, was one of the most notorious female criminals in the United States. Born in Texas, Benoano had a troubled childhood and was married multiple times. She gained notoriety for the murders of her husband, son, and boyfriend. After her son's death, it was discovered that he had been poisoned with a lethal dose of arsenic. It wasn't long before investigators discovered that Benoano had also poisoned her husband and boyfriend in similar ways. Benoano was sentenced to death for the murder of her husband, but it wasn't until after her trial that investigators discovered the full extent of her crimes. She was found guilty of attempted murder, insurance fraud, and arson. In total, she was responsible for the deaths of 4 people and the attempted murder of a 5th. Benoano was the first woman to be executed in Florida since the reinstatement of the death penalty in 1979. She was put to death by lethal injection in 1998. Her case gained national attention and was featured on various true crime shows, including 48 Hours and Deadly Women. The Black Widow of Death Row will go down in history as one of the most notorious female criminals to have ever lived. The stories of these notorious female criminals are both shocking and fascinating, and they continue to captivate audiences today. As we continue to explore the complex and often disturbing world of true crime, the stories of these women will undoubtedly remain a prominent part of our cultural consciousness. Thank you for watching. If you like our content, please don't forget to like and subscribe our channel.